Welcome r/EntitledParents. Karen crashed into my Jeep and expects me to pay her cash for her damages because her children will starve if she pays to fix her car. So some backstory: I own a Jeep fully built, lift kit, ADD bumpers, the whole shebang. So one day I'm coming home from work, it's a summer day, the roof is off, and I'm having some open top fun. Stop at a red light and suddenly screech bang. I drive forward slightly and go back to assess the damage, and lo and behold, it's a Mercedes C-Class new one on that as well. Completely destroyed from the front, and my beautiful Jeep had no damage apart from a few scratches. I went to check on the passenger of the Merc. Got them out, luckily she was unharmed. These Mercs are definitely safe. Under a minute after she's out of the car, she starts screaming about how I wrecked her car. I told her calmly that she was the one who rammed into me. I think she understood how my hitting her would be impossible. I offered to share our insurance details because I knew that Mercedes damage doesn't come cheap. But she said she didn't have insurance. She insisted that I pay her $10,000 cash. How she got this number? I don't know. I said that was just plain wrong. As 1 point, she hit me. 2 point, it's her fault for not having insurance. She then went on a ramble on how her kids needed the money and they had no money at the time, and now her kids will have to starve because she will have to pay to fix her car, and how it will all be my fault when they are on the street tomorrow. Yeah, on the street with a Mercedes, my ass. That is why you should have insurance. But no, she said that she would call the cops if I didn't pay her. I refused, as this is just dumb. So then she called the cops. Yeah. Cops came, assessed the damage, and asked us what happened, and she said, and I quote, "He backed into me at full speed on a red light SMH." Then they asked me what happened, and I told them, and it became a he said she said situation. Luckily a shopkeeper was there and saw the whole thing and even captured it on a surveillance camera. Needless to say, I came out on top. Cops got her for reckless driving and driving without insurance. She then started yelling at the cops about how they would just let a criminal get away. They explained that I did nothing wrong and that they now had video evidence. The partner of the cop came to me and told me if I could drive I can leave, so I got in my Jeep and left. Never wanna have a Karen experience again, not worth it. PS, if you have a lifted Jeep with heavy duty bumpers, a Mercedes can't do much damage. TL. Doctor, Karen crashed into me, wrecked her car, had no insurance, wanted me to pay $10,000 cash. Cops came, ticketed her, and I left. A while ago I was in my partner's new ute and was in the parking garage at the local mall. I needed to reverse as I wasn't parked straight in the spot, so I backed up a tiny bit. I had of course checked my mirrors etc before doing so. Next thing I hear is a bump, so I stopped. Then there was a grind that went off for a good 5 seconds. I got out and here is this Lexus with the entire side crumpled from the back to the front passenger door. Here I was freaking out that I had just killed the ute my partner had only had a week, and he was gonna kill me for messing up his new car. Thankfully it was just a cracked reflector that to this day we never bothered to replace. Anywho, lady in the Lexus gets out and just goes ballistic at me for backing into her car and totaling it. I tried to tell her that as soon as I heard the bump I stopped, and I didn't know how all the damage happened. She was having none of it. Thankfully there was a lady that had come back to her car a few spaces over that saw the whole thing. The Lexus driver had reversed back past my car just as I was pulling out of the car park, and when I bumped her and stopped she kept reversing. She had gotten caught on the tow ball, and that's what did all the damage to her car. The nice lady gave me her details and said she would give a statement to my insurance to say it was the Lexus driver's fault for all the damage. My insurance company declared that it was indeed the Lexus driver's fault, and since I didn't put in a claim for the reflector my insurance rating wasn't affected. Didn't stop the Lexus driver from harassing me for months trying to get me to admit fault so she could get her car fixed. She didn't have insurance either. It got to the point where she was calling me every day, and it got to the point where I had to get my insurance company to call her to tell her she was out of luck and to not call me again or they would involve the police. Fun times. Never underestimate how badly some people drive. I was headed home from work one night and watched a guy run a red light. Not thinking anything of it, I leaned over to plug in my phone charger. A couple seconds later I was nailed in the face with an airbag. He had stopped in the intersection, panicked, and slammed his car into reverse. His SUV was sitting on my hood with his rear bumper just short of my windshield. Officers on the scene initially assumed I had rear-ended him, until he thankfully admitted that he had backed up and hadn't noticed a vehicle behind him. In my neighborhood we have a lot of one-way streets and a lot of foreign and/or tourist drivers. One particular intersection has two one-way streets meet, and we regularly see people try to turn right and end up going the wrong way down the one-way street. One time my partner saw two idiots meet when one guy tries to turn right and the second guy tries to turn left, both idiots attempting to make an illegal turn to go the wrong way down each other's one-way streets. They barely avoided collision. I had a jackass do something similar. I'm driving on the interstate 80 miles per hour, posted speed limit, and a car is way in front of me, just two tiny red dots in the distance. The road was empty except for us two. All of a sudden I can see the back of the car, not just his taillights. I kind of froze for a second before I realized this bastard had stopped completely in the lane, not slowed down like I'd thought. Brakes and lane change on my part. Insurance payout is the only thing I can think of to explain why this driver parked on the interstate, unless they were suicidal. I wasn't being a jerk driver, nor were my headlights on high beam. Pretty stupid to think getting rear-ended at high speed will go exactly as you think it will. I really wanted to stop and go off on the other driver, but I'd already seen their reasoning skills, so I figured it'd be best if I just kept going. Fun story. I was at a party in high school, not a fun one. There wasn't any alcohol. But towards the end of the night, I was hanging out in the house when my friends came in and told me I should go out and take a look at my car because a kid I knew had hit it when he was backing up and hit the front end. At the time I was driving a 20-year-old Nissan Maxima that had been hit a few times before and already had a dented-in wheel well, so I brushed it off as probably no big deal. But when I went out to check, turns out the kid's parents got him a Hummer, and he had proceeded to wreck my front end, pretty much denting the hood. Being a high schooler, I decided the cool thing to do would be to take a picture of myself planking on top of the bent up hood. Then I jumped on it to push it down and drove it home. That car was a tank, but the damage was more than the cash I paid on it from my high school job. RIP. I've seen so many lifted monstrosities of Jeeps in good old Britain, and I kid you not I saw a truck rear-end one. The Jeep was unscathed. The truck? Bumper falling off. Jeeps are tough AF, and can kick ass off-road. Me and my mate would take his dad's Jeep off-roading, while I ran alongside on my Yamaha dirt bike, forgot model, and that Jeep would bounce up and down, and I would barely keep up. It was a Wrangler Rubicon. We loved that thing. He had to sell it though as they were moving countries for reasons I won't go into. Jeep life edit. Spellings. Same thing over here. My story is more sad though. Family friend was driving a car when a big ass Jeep lifted and had those huge bumpers on the front, made an illegal turn and smashed straight into the front of my friend's car. My friend's car was totaled. She had to be cut from the car and had various injuries that doctors told her she probably wouldn't ever walk again. The Jeep, not even a scratch, and the driver was perfectly fine. Those things are no joke. And that's why I hate it when people drive lifted vehicles on normal roads. Their bumper is in the wrong spot, so it's dangerous to everyone else. Lifted vehicles are for trails, not trying to look like a badass on your morning commute. We should all just drive around in tankers when we first start driving. All primer gray, all built solid as a rock, all equipped with loud sirens anytime you get too close to a solid object, all relegated to the slowway roads for new/bad drivers. No one can go over 40 miles per hour. When you've proven yourself with 24 months of excellent driving, then you're allowed to have a real car and allowed on the freeway. Act like an asshole. Back to your tanker and slowway. Or maybe require driver's ed for people over 18. 3 times just this week I've been driving when an emergency vehicle comes up from behind. The non-idiots immediately pull over to the right as far as possible and stop. but there's always that idiot who just stops in the middle of the intersection, dead center of the road, causing the emergency vehicle have to blare their horns really loudly to make them move. And these are not teenaged or elderly drivers, they are people who should definitely know the basics of what to do when an emergency vehicle is approaching. Everyone here that has mode of transportation should have a dashcam. It saved my butt when I was a new driver and someone pulled out in front of me, totaled both out our cars, and we both went to the hospital. I was going to be at fault, but with the footage he got busted for reckless driving and had to foot the bill for our cars, our injuries, and for my lost wages. Dude was so pissed I thought he was going to add assault to an officer to his list of mess to deal with. Moral of the story, get a dashcam. I calmed him down, told him accidents happen, and that all we had to do was exchange information, but that I'd be cool not involving the police. We exchanged info, and he thanked me profusely for just be really cool and collect about the ordeal. I drive off feeling good. 3 days later the police show up at my house, prepared to charge me with a hit and run. They said it was particularly serious because the young man you backed into has significant injuries. Apparently the kid said I pulled into an intersection. Then, when I saw oncoming traffic, I quickly backed up and into him, sending his car careening onto a sidewalk and into a pole. He had added damage to his rear, as if he'd been pushed back into a pole. I, then, apparently threatened him if he called the police and forced his info out to him. Long/short, luckily, insurance adjusters determined he had deceived the insurance and my vehicle was fixed. I'm not proud to say, though, that I drove around for weeks trying to find this to beat the shit out to him. I never did. I even tried to get his address from the insurance company. I was out to my mind mad. Never did, but learned to always call the cops, or you may end up doing something stupid to the driver that lies, because people are shit and they always lie. You probably never found him, because his parents most likely never let him touch the steering wheel ever again, or even leave the house for that matter.